As Torah Jews, we know throughout history there's been challenges to our emunah. And it's fascinating, the Rambam in the Mishnah Torah actually addresses something that I wouldn't be surprised. We have the revelation of Hashem from Sinai, the Torah, that it's forever and our relationships forever. We have the truth, and how come there's so many people that are not following the Torah, and especially these movements of Christianity and Muslim, they appear and they get masses of people. So you might say to yourself, I don't know, maybe there's truth in numbers. So the Rambam in the Mishnah Torah had this kasha, and he explained as follows. He said that we have to keep in mind that thanks to Avram and descendants, that we don't need people to convert. Mankind, and there's so many good people that are not Jewish. They just have to observe the 7 Noahide. We don't need mass conversion to Judaism. And so the Rambam says as follows. He says, what Hashem did is he allowed for the immense proliferation of Christianity and Muslimness, whatever you say, Islam. So he allowed for that so that the world will be ready. There'll be millions of people that believe there's one God, and also the God who gave the Torah to the Jews. One God, and they'll be ready when the Mashiach shows up. Okay, so that covers a big portion of the world. But what about, let's ask, now that's the giant Rambam, and this teeny weensy me is going to try to stand on his shoulders and say Efshar, possibly, and that's this. What about all the Buddhists and the Hindus? That's a pretty large population there, correct? And then there's secular people, right? So what about them? That could also shake our Jewish faith, that the Torah is true. Moshe emes uTorah so emes. So I'd like to suggest that there's one word that explains it: mindfulness. Mindfulness is sweeping the world, and it's not. First of all, it derives from Buddhism, and it's just popular everywhere. They found ways to make it for the secular. They say it has health effects and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So perhaps we can say that Hashem is putting another dimension that is so central to our Judaism. He's putting another dimension into the world. So when the final redemption occurs, then everyone will be there. I'll explain what I mean. In other words, it's been accomplished that there's an acceptance of a monotheistic God in general, right? And Hashem as one God, and idolatry is, not doing so well in numbers, in hits. So that's been accomplished. But we see that and know that there's people that were born Jewish and had identified in some way with a Jewish religion, and there are Muslims and there are Christians who they're just associated with the religion. They'll identify that way, but they're not really observant. They're not observant, right? So I would suggest that we see it even with the Holy Torah, that you could know the truth, but if your relationship with that one God is an abstraction, and you're not really feeling connected to it, then what happens? the mitzvahs turn into rituals, and you may not even be involved, right? And we know this is a big problem. So it seems to me that the missing thing, you can know there's a God, but how do you connect to God? So you have to be present in the moment, right? So they're given that awareness to get them ready, because you need both. You need Hashem's reality, and you need to be there for the reality. And that's why I called this shir Beyond Here and Now. My wife came up with it, but it's a great one. Beyond Here and Now. And it gets back to this. I told you that my Rabbi said a statement in passing. And he said that, it just takes a few seconds, a couple minutes to be in a state of ecstasy. I told you he said this in a talk, in a schmooze on the night, and then he just went on. And I patted myself on the back for following up and asking, wait a minute. Well, I've had plenty time on my hands, and I don't find myself in a state of ecstasy so often. And so I told you the first thing he said. The first thing he said is, step number one is you have to stop the voice in your head that's always saying, I got this to do, I got that to do, something's coming, something I'm going to take this, I'm going to do it, right? Rushing, right? That's what we spoke about last week. If you can't settle down into the experience, there's no path to kosher, authentic Jewish ecstasy. By the way, the goal is not to teach you how to get spiritually high. That's not my Masorah, okay? The only reason to get spiritually high is to connect and to serve Shem in a proper way. Okay, so it's not my goal, but there's an important reality here. Okay, so that's number one. So that's what he said. He says that you can't rush, and that's what we showed last week, that the Ramchal said you can't rush into a mitzvah. It's not going to work, right? You need to be calm, settled, and ready for reflection before you enter into the mitzvah. Okay, that was last week. And now, with that in mind, and we know that that's one critical step in the process, then we're going to now look at the Kavanah formula again. But let's review this rushing thing. I hope you worked on it, okay? And so let me just remind you of the principles. This is something where you have to think about the negative aspects of rushing, right? So what we said was you're rushing past your purpose in life. In other words, if you're rushing when it comes to the mitzvahs, which are the only way for us to connect to Hashem, if you're rushing it, you're rushing past your purpose here, okay? So that should shake us up and wake us up. And also, Hashem's so good to us, right? So why, in the time that's set aside for him, would we want to rush past our relationship? Okay, so those were the charges like that. So the number one is realizing you're rushing past your purpose. Number two is to realize it's not so good for the relationship with Hashem. And thirdly, I said, the reality is, as we learn in Koheles Rabbah, that the neshama is like a princess, is like this princess who was in the palace with her father, the king. Sound familiar, right? So we have our soul loves it when we reflect and connect and do the mitzvahs in a way that brings us closer to Hashem. So if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for your soul. Do it for your inner princess, right? That's a review of the rushing shir. Now let's go back to the Kavanah formula. And I haven't explained how we're beyond the here and now yet, okay? And I haven't told you the second part of how to reach a state of ecstasy. It's going to come about as we go over the Kavanah formula, okay? So allow me to pull it up. Second. Okay. Ah, there we are. Parrots, you see it?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm just going to do a quick review of the general scheme, and then we're going to go one by one and learn very, very valuable points about each of these steps. Okay. Number one, I changed the order. This is a more logical order. Okay. And before I even do this quick review, I do want to go to this next step. The present in the moment is one thing. Okay. That's for sure. We want to be present in the moment. Oh, you know what? I'm going to wait till we get there in the P and the G. So it's MPG. Sorry, GMP has a very it's a memorable thing about economics. I apologize. MPG is the way to go. Okay, so we have to step one. Oh, and one more thing, one more reminder why we are doing this, because we learned something that's a little disappointing. When you feel that is hisorus, that awakening from having kavana for the mitzvah, it can be a little unsettling when that becomes rote, right? You start to say, well, my name is Talmud Torah, my name is Abba Hashem, yours Hashem, right? So that can get disappointed. So this is what the Kavanah formula is coming to address, because the point is the only way to truly stay present in the moment is to remind yourself, to ask yourself questions that prompt you back into the experience. So you'll choose life, okay? Because you can always zone out, but these are reminders. They're open-ended questions to put you in the moment. All right, so what are they? Again, you ask yourself, what mitzvah am I about to do? And then you have kavanah to fulfill that mitzvah. Step number one. Step number two, you say to yourself, in whose presence am I doing this? The answer is, and always will be, Hashem. Okay. And finally, what's my goal here? And for those of you who've been with us for a while, or if you haven't, the mitzvahs are not an end in themselves, believe it or not. Besides an overall end to get close to God, the mitzvahs are supposed to evolve us to become either attached to Hashem, our soul, like a soul to Hashem connection, or to become as godlike as we can while we walk the earth. Okay, so that's the Kavanah formula. And I asked Peretz to please share his experience, because to his credit, and I'm sure many people did as well, Peretz worked on this immediately after this year, and his experiences, positive and negative, are going to be very valuable for this year. Okay, Peretz, take it away. You can turn off the screen, or I'll go off.
Thanks. Can you see me okay? All right, fine. Yeah, so just briefly, I think that my experience with that first part of the formula was that I asked myself the question, what mitzvah am I about to do, which was a big step from what I was doing before, instead of just rushing into them. But then, so that was the M. The G, in terms, well, originally the G, which is the goal. I was saying, okay, I'm going to come closer to Hashem, or maybe I'm doing something bein Adam lechavera, and so it's like walking in Hashem's ways. But I found that G, the goal, was common to sort of most mitzvahs. So I just felt like that wasn't my first thought. My first thought was like, what is the mitzvah I'm about to do? And that's obviously, I think, what sprung to my mind. And then the P, being presence, doing it in Hashem's presence, also is because it's common to all mitzvahs. I felt that it was much harder to have that in the forefront of my mind. So I think that I found the positives part was definitely the M, the what. The harder things to keep in the forefront of the mind was definitely, that I'm in Hashem's presence, and what is the goal. So that's what you and I were discussing, and I think you've switched to MPG, which is a nice acronym in the car industry world. They call it miles per gallon, MPG. I think you're getting more mileage from your mitzvah.
Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know that. Thank you, Parrots. Fantastic. Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing that. Now I want to address all of this. So first of all, about let's think about the first one, M for mitzvah. So let me go to that slide. Okay. So in this phase of mitzvah, there's really two things to do. Is you have to wake yourself up to the moment. You have to be present, right? What mitzvah am I about to do? So as you travel through your day, when you're going to do them automatically, but if you catch yourself beforehand, say, what am I about to do? I'm telling you that you're already in a different place. And by the way, just a little hint for the future. We're finishing this formula. And after Hanukkah, we're going to start a series of Kavana for 24 hours a day, meaning we're gonna see where everything applies, and hopefully create a very visual scene where you'll be prodded into remembering to apply the world of opportunity. Okay, but ready? So stopping and thinking, right? Stop and think. That's the thing. The first path to ecstasy, if I can sell Lola Shma, right, is you have to stop. What am I doing? What am I doing? Because you're about to do a mitzvah, right? And this is the Ramchal. This is not me. The Ramchal says, if you want a purity of devotion and relationship, you have to stop and think, what am I about to do? You have to prepare. Okay. Now, I have a new technology that is so wonderful, all right, to share with you. So once you realize let's stop and think, what are we doing right now? Okay, we're learning Torah, right? So that's all right. It's a consciousness. You could just go right into the shir. You're listening, you're following, God bless, but still, what am I doing right now? Okay, so that's start one. Now, how do you express your kavanah? I want to just quickly give you a review and introduce something that's personally has been once again life-changing, okay? You could even just say, let's say it's the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. You could even get away with the Shem mitzvah. And by the way, you don't have to say it out loud, and oftentimes you can't, but sometimes you can, and it's better. But anyhow, Shem mitzvah. Okay, you did that, you just moved into Lechatchila. However, there's better. L'shem mitzvah Kriya Shema. So you have in mind, I'm doing Kriya Shema. But the classic formula, which is mentioned in the Mishnah Berurah and what Rabbi Garfinkel focused on, is Kasher Tziva Hashem. I have in mind to fill the mitzvah Kasher Tziva Hashem as Hashem commanded. And that's throughout the Torah. And the Mishnah Berurah brings that. How could you improve on that? How about this? Okay. You know, one of the most vaunted dreams of someone who is involved in Torah is to reach the level of L'Shem Shemayim, right? If you see what the Mishnah in Avos says about someone who's L'Shem Shemayim, it's like the whole creation is worthy for someone who's has that kind of purity, that Hashem, I'm doing this for no other reason than you told me to, than you love me, L'Shem Shemayim. So guess what? Rashi, in the Gemara Tainus, I think it's Tes Zayin, Amid Aleph. You know what it says, how you should be L'Shem Shemayim? You know what the formula is? Listen to what Rashi says. To do the mitzvah kasher tzivani Hashem, and not for some other agenda. Kasher tzivani. How do we translate that? Kasher tziva Hashem, which is the classic, is as Hashem commanded. But listen to this. Kasher tzivani, as he commanded me. Then now it's getting personal. Now we're going beyond here and now, right? Relationship, right? There's a relationship there. And when I say, as Hashem commanded me, not the Jewish people in general, right? Moshe Rabbeinu, as Hashem commanded me, when you do that, and you have in mind, right? Let's do it right now. We're learning Torah. I have in mind to fulfill the mitzvah of learning Torah, kasher tzivani Hashem, as Hashem commanded me, and feel that personal quality. That's lishma. All of it, you hear? Look, of course, to purify ourselves from other agendas and be lishma in what we do. That's, I admit, we're not talking that this is the ultimate lishma, but it counts as lishma. Grab onto it. What a benefit. You hear? So lock that in. Write that down. Lock that in. Kasher tzivani Hashem, as Hashem commanded me. Okay? All right. So that's the first part. And again, as Parrott shared, this is something that it's going to change in given situations. You go into a shul to what am I about to do? I'm about to enter the miniature base of Mikdash, and I can fulfill Mikdashi Tira'u, right? So you can pride yourself. I'm about to recite Ashrei, which the rabbis, which Shem commands me to listen to the rabbis, and the rabbis command me to do it 3 times a day. Kasher tzivani Hashem commanded me. Okay, great. This part will wake you up, guaranteed, because you have to be constantly stopping and thinking. All right. Now let's deal with Peretz's point. Who am I doing the mitzvah for? Hashem. Okay. What about this situation? Who am I doing the mitzvah for? Hashem. It's always the same. So isn't it prone to rote? At the surface, yes, but no. Okay. Let me explain. And also, like he said, if the destination is either going to be Devekis or Halakha B'drachav, to either be attached to Hashem or to emulate Hashem, so you're going to always be answering one or the other. So why isn't that going to be rote? So this is because we have to realize what the point of PG is, okay? What's the point of presence, reminding you? So the Ramchal told us to do this. Presence, reminding you're doing it before Hashem. And the second, I'll give you, I think everybody knows this mashal. I think it's universal. It's a universal experience. You know, Peretz is from South Africa / London, and he knew it. I mean, I guess you've heard this. And just in case anyone listening hasn't ever done this, let's do it right now, okay? So, raise your hand, raise your hand high, okay? All right, good. Now, I want you to do one more thing. Raise it higher, okay? I succeeded, right? Most people, right, when they're given that instruction, right, is to stretch it further, they're able to stretch it further, okay? The purpose of reminding yourself you're doing the mitzvah in the presence of Hashem is to stretch you further and engage you more deeply in what you're doing, okay? And the same thing with the goal. I'll explain them one by one and we'll be done. Oh. I forgot this. Before we go to P and G, those are stretchers, but this is the famous Czech analogy. Look at the title here, the supreme importance of kavana for the mitzvah, okay? This formula is not weighted equally. The best way is this metaphor. If there's a check, if there's a 1, every 0 afterwards is making you more money. But if there's no 1 there, you can add 100,000 zeros and it's still nothing, right? The stopping and saying l'shem mitzvah or kasher kriya shema kasher tzvani Hashem, that is the 1, okay? That moves your mitzvah into lichatchila. Some mitzvahs, if you don't have it, there is no mitzvah. So don't when you're working on this, put a premium on having kavanah from the mitzvah, the first step we did. And like I said, after Hanukkah, we're going to go into your entire day and night and sleeping period and teach you what kavanah to have. So, okay, that's a public service announcement for the importance of KLM. Okay, now let's go to the stretching and let's understand how we can use the fact that we're absolutely in the presence of Hashem to enhance the mitzvah. Okay, so this is, you have to, again, a caveat, anyone who's new to the game, what's so powerfully Jewish is that Hashem has no image. I must say this, there was, from our perspective, there was a well-known Jewish person who went into another religion, and it kind of sent waves out. And one of the things about it, you could see that it could be that they were attracted to it because there was an image that affected them emotionally. And Mrs. Sarah Rigler wrote an article about this. And this is, Judaism's a very mature look into reality. And she said a beautiful point. Hashem is formless, but he's not an abstraction. This is very important, a wonderful way to describe it. The challenge is there's no form for Hashem, but he's realer than all of us. I'm not going to go into that. It's very deep and very important and true, but he's more real than all of us, okay? There's no form. So I just put in the caveat that when you do this, you have to imagine something that you can't picture, but the sensation you should have, okay? And I'm a big believer in doing it right now, okay? We're learning Torah, right? So here's what I do, okay? Is first of all, we pointed out about, it's true, you're always in front of Hashem, but it's like your breath. This entire share, most people were not following their breath. Now, if you stop for a second, you notice you're breathing. And the same thing with the heartbeat, right? So the same thing with Hashem. Hashem's not going to be in your presence. You're not going to be in his presence, or he's not going to be in your awareness unless you draw him in. Okay, so okay. That's one thing. But now, how do you draw him in? So this is what I do, and this is why it stretches my experience, my performance of the mitzvah. Okay, let's not do do it now. Also, here, let's start with the experience we're having right now. But I want to move to something like making an asher yatzar. Okay, so right now, the thing is the thing you have to. One has to think that Hashem is watching me, but how do you relate to that? So we say he's Avinu Malkeinu. Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Miller just recently said this exact point. But think of that the observing Hashem's doing of you when you're doing this mitzvah right now of learning Torah is like a parent who's just looking on and is so proud of you and is getting so much nachas that you're taking time out of your busy schedules to immerse in Torah, and to immerse in Torah that's trying to help you evolve your relationship with Hashem. Think about how much nachas, right? So the point is this: when you do that, now imagine you went to the restroom, you're coming out of the restroom, and you're in the middle of your busy day. So stop, don't rush. You have a asher yatzar, and by the way, I pointed out asher yatzar. It takes, there's that sign, it takes 120 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. No, that sounds like too much. 20 seconds. I don't remember. But anyhow, the point is this. If you feel you don't have enough time to slow down and say, asher yatzar, that blessing for being able to use the restroom, you're being irrational. You're definitely being irrational. You have time for it. Okay, so you stop. But ready? This is what I want you to add, okay? Add this to your asher yatzar. Picture that you're doing this in the presence of Hashem, and you want to give him nachas. So by the way, that's being Lishma according to Rav Asher Weiss. It's a mitzvah of Avos Hashem. It's a lot you accomplish by that. Okay, so being in Hashem's presence, my recommendation is have a sensation like the divine parent, your divine parent Hashem is watching and getting nachas. But you want to do the mitzvah, you want to stretch the mitzvah, do it in a way that's going to bring him nachas. And that's the difference. If you say a Shariat Tsar without thinking Hashem is present, you may whip through it, okay? But when you stop yourself and say, Hashem's watching and I want to give him nachas, so you're going to do it properly, please God, okay? Now on the last one, okay? So that's P, okay? So my goal, right? So again, this is to help you. The answer will be the same, but it reminds you to stretch yourself and do the mitzvah with more engagement and more properly. Let's say, let's take the first one. Let's say, I don't want to talk about like sadder things. Let's say you have a chasana, right? You're going to chasana, it's your best friend, he's marrying off a daughter, right? So you have the mitzvah of haftarecha kamocha, to show him the honor by coming. You have a lakta b'dracha by sharing his simcha, right? You have these mitzvahs, right? But you want to do those mitzvahs of a haftarecha kamocha and a lakta b'dracha. You want to do that in a way that when you leave the chasana, you are more like a Kadosh Baruch Hu in terms of his midot, in terms of his perfect qualities. You're more like Hashem than when you came to the Hasana. You hear? It's going to stretch you. The same thing with Psuki de Zimra on the other one. What's the goal? Remember, we say Devekas is an overall goal, but no, Devekas is a mitzvah. And the Ramban and the Hayam explain it as follows, meaning that your thoughts and your feelings are supposed to end up attached to Hashem. So you can recite Psuki Zimra one way, and there's not going to be that much attachment. But you want to finish the Psuki Zimra and delight in the fact that your thoughts and your feelings really as if attached to Hashem. You hear? So that's the process. So now let me go all the way back to the beginning. See, beyond here and now is as follows. And now let me tell you what Rabbi Green said. The second step towards ecstasy. First one, slow down, turn off the voice of hurriedness, accomplishment. We said, by the way, last time we said some of that is you're chasing it's a wild goose because you're never going to get enough money. You're never going to get enough affirmation from other people. It's not happening. So get off the treadmill. Okay, that treadmill. Get off it, right? That's the first step. Calm that down. Don't rush and say, what am I about to do? Who am I doing it in front of? What's my goal, right? That's the step one. But why is Judaism, why is mindfulness just like a step further, right? So we said, you believe in God, great. You believe the world had a creator, great. But if he's just kind of not in your life and abstract, right? So then we have be in the moment, right? But now here's what Rabbi Green said. What's the second thing? He said, and again, keep in mind, God is formless. He's formless, but he created things, right? So what Rabbi Green said, the second step is everything you see, right? The image on the screen, your computer, a flower, the air, the sky. It's as if Hashem is behind it. No images, but saying, I'm here. I love you. I love you. I'm behind all of this. And what beyond here and now is what Hashem says, but the only way to have a relationship, see, that's the thing. Buddhism has a universe. It's not a relationship with the maker of the universe, who's also a divine parent and a ruler, etc. So the thing is this, we have to realize that the mitzvahs are the only way to have a relationship. So let's do them in a way that relates to Hashem. That's why we need this. What am I doing? Who am I doing it for? And what's my goal? Okay, Hashem should help us. Please apply as much as you can and spread these ideas. Okay, thank you, everybody. I apologize for going a little longer than we normally do.